If a coworker is actively trying to make you fail at work, it's almost never random. It's a predictable pattern, and if you don't understand how that pattern works, you'll either burn out, get quietly sidelined, or pushed out completely while they walk away clean. So today I'm going to show you exactly how competitive coworkers operate, why the advice you've been hearing doesn't work, and what actually protects you when someone wants your job or your reputation destroyed. Let's start with what you've probably been told to do. Ignore them, stay professional, focus on your work, keep your head down, and let your results speak for themselves. Here's the problem with all of that. It doesn't work. In fact, it makes things worse, because while you're being the bigger person, they're in your boss's ear, reframing every project you touch. They're positioning your wins as their ideas. They're planting seeds of doubt about your judgment, your work ethic, your team fit. And the more invisible you try to become, the more space you give them to control the narrative about who you are. The second thing people tell you is to confront them directly. Have an honest conversation, clear the air. Tell them how their behavior makes you feel and ask if you did something to upset them. And look, I'm going to give you that strategy later because sometimes it works. But most of the time, when you reveal that they're getting to you, you just gave them exactly what they wanted. Confirmation that their tactics are working, and now they know which buttons to push even harder. So if ignoring them doesn't work and confronting them is risky, what do you actually do? You need to understand what you're dealing with first. Competitive coworkers who want you to fail operate from one of two places. Either you're a genuine threat to something they want, or they've identified you as someone they can use as a stepping stone. Let me explain the difference because your strategy changes depending on which one you're dealing with. The first type sees you as a threat. Maybe you got promoted faster than they did. Maybe you're working on the high visibility projects they've been chasing for years. Maybe the boss clearly prefers your approach to theirs. Maybe you're just younger and they see you as competition for the next opening. When this happens, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just in their way. Before you showed up, maybe they were the top performer, the go-to person, the one everyone noticed. Then you arrived and the spotlight shifted. And instead of stepping up their own game, they decided the easier path was tearing you down. Here's how you know if this is your situation. Their behavior is consistent. They undermine you in meetings, they take credit for your work, they CC your boss on your small mistakes, but never your wins. They're friendly to your face, but you hear later they've been talking about you behind your back. They volunteer you for impossible deadlines or projects designed to fail. This isn't random negativity. This is strategic. They're trying to dim your light so theirs looks brighter by comparison. The second type is different. They don't see you as a threat. They see you as a target. And the difference matters. This person has identified something about the way you operate, the way you respond to pressure, the way you handle conflict, and they've decided you're someone they can exploit. Maybe you're too nice. Maybe you apologize too much. Maybe you've shown that you'll back down when challenged. Maybe you're new and don't understand the political landscape yet. They're not scared of you. They just see an opportunity to build themselves up by making you look bad. You know you're dealing with this version when their attacks feel almost casual. They're not obsessively tracking your every move. They just take shots when it's convenient. They'll throw you under the bus if it makes them look good, but they're not losing sleep over you. You're just collateral damage in their career strategy. And honestly, this version can be even more dangerous because they're not emotional about it. They're calculating. Now here's what most people miss about both types. They're not going to stop on their own. They're not going to wake up and suddenly develop integrity. They're not going to get bored and move on unless you make yourself a harder target than it's worth. Because what they're doing is working. If it wasn't working, they wouldn't keep doing it. So your job is to change the cost-benefit analysis for them. You need to make it more costly or more difficult to come after you than it's worth. Here's how you do that. First, you document everything, and I mean everything. Every meeting where they took credit for your work, every email where they misrepresented what you said, every conversation where they committed to something and then later claimed they did it. You're building a paper trail, but you're doing it quietly. You're not running to HR every time something happens. You're collecting evidence so that when the moment comes, you have receipts. Because without documentation, it's your word against theirs. And if they've been playing this game longer than you, they're better at it. Second, you start controlling the narrative before they can. After every important meeting, you send a summary email. Just to confirm, here are the action items we discussed and who's responsible for what. You CC the relevant people. You're not being aggressive, you're being thorough. But what you're really doing is creating a record that's harder for them to rewrite later. When you complete a project, you send an update with your name clearly attached to your contributions. Again, you're not bragging, you're just being clear about who did what. This makes it much harder for them to claim your work as theirs. Third, you build alliances, but you do it carefully. You're not going around bad-mouthing this person. That makes you look petty and unprofessional. Instead, you build genuine relationships with other people in your department and in other departments. You make yourself visible to people beyond just your immediate boss. You contribute in meetings, you help colleagues when you can, you become known as someone reliable and competent. Because if this competitive coworker tries to trash your reputation later, there are already people who have their own experience with you that contradicts whatever story they're trying to tell. Fourth, and this is critical, you stay absolutely professional with them at all times. Never lose your cool, never send an emotional email, never snap at them in a meeting, because they're waiting for you to do that. They're trying to provoke you into looking irrational, emotional, difficult to work with. The moment you give them that, they win. So you stay calm, you stay courteous, you stay focused on the work. It drives them crazy when they can't get a reaction out of you. And it protects you because if this ever escalates to HR, you want to be the one who stayed professional the entire time. Now, if none of that stops them, if they keep escalating, if their behavior crosses into harassment or sabotage that's affecting your ability to do your job, then you go to HR. But you go prepared. You don't walk in emotional and venting. You walk in with your documentation. You describe specific incidents with dates. You explain what you've already tried to resolve it. You stay calm and factual. You ask for their guidance on next steps. You're not demanding they be fired. You're asking for help navigating a difficult situation. This positioning matters because it makes you look reasonable and solution-oriented instead of vindictive. But here's something that nobody talks about that I need you to hear. While you're doing all of this tactical stuff, there's a deeper question you need to ask yourself. Why is this person getting to you as much as they are? And I don't mean that in a blame the victim way. I mean, there's a reason their specific words or actions hit you harder than they might hit someone else. There's a reason you lose sleep over this. There's a reason you feel that knot in your stomach every morning. Usually, it's because somewhere inside you, there's a part of you that's scared they might be right. Maybe there's an old belief that you're not good enough. Maybe there's a voice that tells you you're an imposter and someone's going to figure it out eventually. Maybe you've always felt like you had to prove yourself and now here's someone actively trying to disprove you. When a competitive coworker's attacks land hard, it's usually because they're poking at a wound that was already there. They didn't create your insecurity, they're just exploiting it. This matters because if you can identify what that wound is, if you can look at it honestly and start healing it, their attacks lose power. Not because the attacks stop, but because they stop landing the same way. When you're genuinely secure in your value and your abilities, when you know what you bring to the table, when your sense of worth isn't dependent on everyone liking you or recognizing you, then a competitive coworker becomes more of an annoyance than a threat. They're still doing their thing, but you're not giving them the emotional real estate in your head anymore.